Imagine that we are in a clearing in the center of an ancient forest. We are sitting around a roaring fire on a dark night. The trees twist and rustle around us. They're swaying, momentarily letting in a sliver of light from the starlight above. To say this forest is enchanted is probably stating what's overly obvious, since all forests offer pathways of magic. However, many of us have forgotten how to open these pathways. Just like secret passageways mostly hidden, they can be easily overlooked if one doesn't know where to find them. So conditioned have we become, no longer recognizing true magic, even as it stares us in the face. But what if, while sitting at this crackling blaze, others who knew these passageways well appeared and began sharing their mysteries? What if the wind blew and you were able to hear the stories it carried? What if the whispers of the stones suddenly swirled like mists of memory around you? And the fire danced in patterns of light that you recognized? What if you could hear Earth herself speaking to you her secrets in her ancient tongue? Can you feel it, my friend? The stirring of these ancient forces within you and around you? Do you remember? Welcome to Elemental Whispers, a podcast dedicated to creating pathways of remembrance through the sharing of personal experiences and real-life sacred stories of working with the community of otherworld beings for healing, growth, and joyful enchantment. I'm Diamira Rose D'Agostino, and this is my gift to you. A podcast that is really meant to be a doorway. May it illuminate this pathway of magical remembrance. May its medicine of enchantment guide you in your elemental journey of soul, earth, and spirit. Hello there, my friend. Welcome to the very first episode of Elemental Whispers. This is actually episode 0, as it's meant to be a little intro. This podcast has been such a heart dream to bring to you. In this episode 0, I hope to share a little bit about how this dream came about, as well as what to expect over the course of our journey together. Not just today, but through the many episodes I hope to bring to you. First, I'd like to offer a bit of background for those of you who don't know me. For over a decade, my life's work has been deeply immersed in the study and research of interpersonal relationships and communication with the other world of fairy and other spiritual inhabitants of the sacred ecology of Gaia. That's an endearing term for Mother Earth. As a result of my own experiences and remembrances, I've taught many workshops and programs, led spiritual journeys to many sacred places to connect with these beings of this more subtle plane of existence, mainly for the purpose of spiritual development, mutual healing and growth, and soul remembrance. So I probably need to share a little bit about what I mean by a connection and relationship with the other world. I'm talking about learning how to relate to other peoples of Gaia, peoples that include humans, but also encompass a much wider range of life, including plants, trees, animals, and also the very vast, unseen realm of elementals, fairy, elven, she, dragon. Stick with me long enough and you'll learn about all of this and more. But what I hope to offer, more than teaching and explaining about these beings, is an invitation to build a connection of mutual trust and respect and learning from one another. I've learned over time that we do this through the exchange of very different ways of seeing the world, but also through more subtle forms of learning. For example, sensitizing to and learning to recognize one another's energy patterns and signatures. When we commune with one another, there is a heart connection that occurs, and it is within that heart connection that this synergistic blossom unfolds. And from that, we step into a story with each other. We are invited into their story, and they are invited into ours. And it is through weaving with the threads of these stories that we come alive. We re-enchant our lives and the world around us. And that's what I'm talking about here. Relating with the spirit world in this way honors each person or being as having a unique contribution and acknowledges each other's sovereignty. And I feel like it's important to add this piece about sovereignty because I am aware that for some people, the idea of interacting with the spirit realm may look like sitting in meditation and receiving guidance from our spirit guides. But what I'm talking about is much fuller than that. It's a collaboration of soul, heart, and mind. And it is this, I believe, that is part of the New Earth paradigm, which I'm completely invested in co-creating. So this is the point where you might ask, well, what is New Earth? This is a very big conversation. And in this moment, what's arising for me to speak to is that New Earth is a reality we are currently creating. More than a new philosophy, New Earth is the next evolution of planetary consciousness, where we are in sacred relationship with all peoples of Gaia's sacred ecology. Rather than being an over-spiritualized idea of ascension or transcendence, it's a way of relating to one another through our senses and our illuminated hearts, and completely conscious collaborators within the sacred ecology that I'm speaking of. The vision I'm inviting you into, it's one that is dynamic. I might call it dynamic collaborative living, and it invites creative expression with all life, both seen and unseen. As I'm sharing about New Earth in this episode or in future episodes, I don't mean ungrounded, new age, watered down spirituality or spiritual escapism. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm referring to deep, anchored, rooted ancestral memory. Not just human ancestry, but rooted in the memory that lives in the trees, the stone, the land, and Earth herself. This is not about the memory of the past, but the living memory of now. The empowered living memory that lives in the heart of fairy. And then bringing that forward as an embodied mythic reality. This is a work and a way of life that I have been committed to for so long. And the experience of it has radically enchanted and alchemized my entire existence. And it was from this from this experience, these experiences that I've had over the last couple decades, that this podcast was born. It was born of a deep heart desire to share the path of embodied mythic reality. And rather than explaining a whole lot or teaching about it in any conventional kind of way, what I'm feeling called to do is to transmit it from my heart to yours through the power of story. So throughout this podcast, you're going to hear from me, and also I plan to invite others on as well, others who are also living the fairy and elemental mysteries and exploring the path of enchanted living and embodied mythic reality in their own way. These episodes are going to be filled with examples of working with the otherworld community of beings, vivid descriptions of interactions among us, and honest reflections and genuine human feelings, emotions, and even doubts that arise as a normal part of walking this path. I don't think a lot of people talk about that. In fact, if you haven't had a chance to grab a copy of my latest book, a magical memoir called Initiation, My Fairy Soul Awakening, I would highly recommend you check it out because it is filled with a real journey around awakening into these realms, the wisdom that they reflect to us, and the ups and downs of the journey. I share as honestly and authentically as I can possibly muster. It almost feels as if you are privy to my most private thoughts and musings. And it's an incredible story. I've heard it's a real page turner. And it traverses not only various sacred sites and countries spanning different continents, but it also traverses lifetimes. It is a complete multidimensional experience bringing you into a true fairy initiation. On a very deep level, the book and this podcast are like bridges. Bridges that act as pathways of connection. Sprinkled along them are key codes that speak to your soul, helping you open into more expansive dimensionality. The invitation is to allow these medicine codes, the living energy and symbols within the stories, to help open and activate your own places of inner knowing and holy soul remembrance. So I'll ask you again, what if the wind blew and you were able to hear the stories it carried? What if the whispers of the stones suddenly swirled like mists of memory around you, and the fire danced in patterns of light that you recognized? What if you could hear Earth herself speaking to you her secrets in her ancient tongue? Can you feel it, my friend? The stirring of these ancient forces within and around you? Are you starting to remember?